Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this episode, episode 2 of Doctor Who, The Devil's Chord, I think I have to address this first. I believe, and call me crazy, this entire episode is nothing more than an allegory of Russell T Davies crying out for help. Telling the audience that no, I have not sold out, I am not a talentless hack, I am being controlled by outside forces, and they are stealing the joy away from me and this show. This whole episode is nothing more than showing what happens when you lose creativity, when you lose love in your craft. And it makes me wonder, why would he write something so ridiculously on the nose as this episode? Because he wrote Space Babies, and he wrote this episode, The Devil's Chord. He's credited as the writer, and the only writer in both of these episodes. Would you be surprised for a second that this man is being controlled by outside forces, being paid to proclaim his love for certain things, to try to push certain ideologies? I mean, now they've linked up with Disney. Disney is all about pushing ideologies on children, and now Doctor Who seems to be doing the exact same thing. Coincidence? I think not. So let's get into this episode, The Devil's Chord, and you guys let me know what you think about it. The episode starts off very, very well, actually, with a piano teacher and a student just talking about the love of music as they play the piano. And then he explains what the Devil's Chord is. Apparently it's a tune that was banned by the church in medieval times. He says that it allows the devil to enter the room. So, in his hubris, he decides to start playing the tune. The very tune that he says is banned and could essentially bring the devil out. And what do you think happens afterwards? Oh, the piano closes, and there's a rumbling inside of it. And out emerges the maestro, the villain of this story. This Bette Midler looking type creature from Hocus Pocus. And the piano says, "Quick, get away from him!" And the maestro has to correct us about pronouns and say them. And then mocks the teacher for not fully understanding what the pronouns are. And also, let me just quickly get this out of the way. I didn't realize that this was, and it makes me wonder, okay, Hollywood wants to try to normalize certain things, and that's why they're putting certain things on our TV screens and shoving these ideas down our throats so it'll become normalized. But my question is, why do you make these people into these weird demonic looking caricatures? And you make them all weird. Can't you just make a character that just so happens to be this? Just makes me wonder, wouldn't you want to be respectful for this? But moving on, it doesn't matter. And then the child just dematerializes before our eyes. And the piano teacher is very, very okay with what just happens. Barely has a question about it at all. And then the maestro starts playing the piano, and the musical chords are then ripped out of the teacher's chest and into the conductor's wand, which then the maestro starts licking and sucking it off. And I'm wondering again, isn't this made for children? As this character is sucking on this wand while moaning? Little weird, right? Five minutes into this episode. And we get all this shoved down our throats? But then we get brought to the TARDIS, where Ruby is talking with the Doctor, and she's like, you know what I want to do? I want to go see the Beatles play. I want to go back to the 1960s and watch the Beatles record, because then she goes off on this long tangent about her mother's girlfriend, who has all these albums of the Beatles, and she grew up loving them, and all this stuff, though. And the whole time, the Doctor is not remotely into this at all. He's not making eye contact with her. He's just pressing buttons on the TARDIS. He's going around doing calculations stuff like that. He looks completely disinterested. So it makes me wonder, okay, is the Doctor going to acknowledge that, no, Ruby, this is not a toy. We shouldn't go back and meddle with the past. This isn't something that we should do all willy-nilly. But then he bursts into laughter and excitement of the idea, and they start jumping for joy. He then says he was relieved that Ruby did not want to go see the Titanic. Apparently that's what a lot of people like to go see. Can you imagine for a second having the ability to go see any event in history and you want to go see the worst ship accident of all time? Are you going to just sit there and watch from the TARDIS at a distance and eat popcorn and watch all these people freeze to death? The Doctor also clumps in Mars and Bethlehem as other places that people run to go see. So we have the worst ship tragedy of all time, a desolate planet, and the birth of Christ. Those are the top three. But after the Doctor types in the coordinates, they land in the 60s. But oh, no. They can't possibly leave yet, though. It's the 60s. They need to have 60s types of clothing, right? And then the Doctor gets all giddy and explodes in a sprint, and they go to change outfits. It's almost like Russell T. Davies wrote this show to mock stereotypes, and then wants to shame me for pointing them out. The duo then gets to the record studio, and the duo then goes into the music studio, and Ruby asks the very obvious question of, hey, how are we going to have access to the recording studio? And the Doctor, I swear, just shrugs it off, like, I don't know. Just, not important. A worker comes around the corner with a cart filled with tea, and Ruby just says, hey, we're here to take over your shift, you can take a 10-minute break. As this woman, clearly in a working outfit, sees these two random people that do not wear her uniform at all, and she's like, oh, thank you so much, and goes off. Now, if I'm not mistaken, didn't episode 1 Space Babies have where Ruby stepped on a butterfly, and then a second later she turned into a lizard person? So, is it possible that she might have screwed up the course of human history by having this woman go on her break and muddling around with all these things? Of course, that's never answered, because that would be the end of the show right then and there. And the duo grabs the cart, they go into the recording studio, and then we see them. The Beatles, in all their glory, the biggest sex symbols of the 60s. And they get their instruments ready, and they start playing their music, and it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Ruby and the Doctor exchange some looks of wondering what the hell is going on, and it made me wonder. You know that every great one out there did not pop out bangers their very first time? I mean, if you watch the movie Weird, the Weird Al Yankovic movie with Daniel Radcliffe, he tried for a while to get music right and didn't get it right for a very long time. And then he saw his friend Sting a Baloney and came up with the song Mama Mama My Bologna. So sometimes you might need a little bit of inspiration. So that's what I was wondering. I was like, oh, maybe there's a chance that the Beatles need some kind of inspiration or something to happen for them to get this music right. But then I realized, oh, wait a second. The beginning of the episode, it's all about music and stealing music. So good thing Ruby did not decide to go to the Titanic. Because if she went to the Titanic, you know that scene where the ship is going down and the dudes are playing Nearer My God to Thee, you know, as it's sinking and it's all sad and stuff like that? If they would have gone to the Titanic now after the maestro destroyed music, would these dudes on the ship be playing Cardi B's WAP instead? And as I'm watching this and thinking about this, I'm wondering to myself, why is this show not written like the show Time Squad on Cartoon Network? Where every episode, they get some kind of alert that time is out of sync. So they have to go back in time to these historical events and kind of push them in the right directions. So that's what I kind of thought that Doctor Who was going to be about at this point, though, where they keep going back in time to kind of course correct history, because wouldn't the slightest thing kind of screw everything up for everyone? But no, we don't get any of that, though. It's just, okay, don't step on a butterfly. We did that one episode. We could bum around and do whatever we want going forward. Poorly written show. Back to the episode. And then they decide to go to a different recording room with this other woman that pulls out yet another stinker of a song. So the Doctor and Ruby go to the cafeteria and they see all the performers and they're just wondering, like, what is going on? And Ruby says, music can't be lost or stolen or killed. But Ruby, I incredibly disagree with you. Creativity can be stolen, creativity could be killed, And this show is a prime example of what happens when you essentially steal creativity and kill it. But then the Doctor realizes that something is wrong with the timeline when he looks at the newspaper, and he thinks, okay, we have to talk to the Beatles privately and find out what's going on. But wait, again, wouldn't that screw up the timeline entirely? Did they not forget that? Is this a theme of Doctor Who in the previous seasons? I understand that this is the first season of Doctor Who, according to Disney+. But did any of this stuff happen in the previous seasons? Was the Doctor just bumming around and going to all these historical events and screwing up history and interacting with people he shouldn't have? But then we get to the scene of the Doctor talking to Paul McCartney. And I'm going to say this without any hyperbole or anything like that at all. When this scene happened, I saw what Ncuti Gatwa was capable of. Real, solid acting. His conversation with Paul was excellent. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't a mockery of stereotypes. It was a deep, deep conversation about music and what it means to people and how it makes people feel. And in that moment, I truly believed in Ncuti Gatwa, the actor. I believed in Doctor Who, the show, and I believed in Russell T Davies. Because if you can craft a scene that beautifully written, if you put that same time and dedication into the rest of your show, we would be looking at one of the best shows on TV today. Without a doubt, this would be the best Doctor. Without a doubt, this would be the best season. And yes, I understand how crazy that sounds, but somehow, the same dude that wrote Space Babies and this episode apparently wrote this one scene, and that makes me wonder, what the hell is going on behind the scenes? Because is this Russell T Davies crying out to us, showing that yes, he can create a beautiful scene, that he is not just a talentless hack? Is it possible? Is it even remotely plausible today? Look at all the companies that have been infested with BlackRock and Vanguard and DEI and all this crap out there. Are you telling me that it's not remotely possible that Russell T Davies is simply just being paid off right at this point? That maybe they have some kind of dirt on him or concocted some kind of a story and are forcing this guy to make this show? I know it sounds crazy, but just look at the times of today and seeing the crazy ideas that all these companies, these well-known major companies, are coming up with. You're telling me all of a sudden this dude decided, hey, I want to destroy the very show that I'm known for. A show that was been around for a very, very, very long time and a lot of people liked. All of a sudden, I'm going to go out there and create the worst product possible and kill my legacy. Does that sound any more ridiculous than, hey, I'm being paid off or blackmailed? What do you guys think about that? But moving on. The moment is cut short because the maestro appears in the reflective surfaces in the room and Paul storms off. Then afterwards we get the Doctor doing some over-the-top dramatics instantly right after this beautifully concocted scene. Then we're back to Ncuti Gatwa doing whatever he wants to. They're on a rooftop and they're having some people bring up a piano, and he looks out at the smog that is taking over the town. And the Doctor looks in the distance and says, oh, I used to live there. Yes, with my granddaughter. And Ruby is a bit confused, as we all should be. And then he says the Time Lords get a bit complicated. And then goes off to say that he doesn't know what happened to her. Now, I'm new to the Doctor Who franchise. I believe, and I'm saying this right now though, I wonder if the Doctor's granddaughter is Ruby's adopted mother. The timelines from the 60s, and based on how old the actual actress is, they're not that far off. So, we have Ruby that's somehow being studied by the Doctor. He knows there's something up with her. Would you be surprised if the Doctor's granddaughter is Ruby's adopted mother? I know it sounds crazy. Just, would you be surprised if it was? But again, moving on, they hire some people to bring up the piano and a couple of other things, and Ruby starts to play the piano and bring music back. The people are sitting at their windows and they don't have a frown on. They start smiling and looking at the sky and being all happy But again, isn't this Ruby changing the course of history? Did they not forget anything about this? How the doctor said, oh, you cannot see your mother drop you off at the church because it would ruin everything and you would disappear and cease to exist and everything like that? Did they not forget all these things? You would have done a better job of not putting that in the first episode. So then Ruby starts playing the song and everyone starts loving it, and then the maestro knocks the piano back and emerges creepily, and the doctor runs away. But didn't we have in the last episode where the doctor gave us a speech about he doesn't run and that monsters are like people you don't understand or something like that though? Explain it in the first episode that he did not run simply out of fear. He ran because the monster was screaming at a certain decibel that incites fear. But then the doctor explains that plot hole by simply just saying, I cannot fight this thing. The doctor explains that the maestro is part of the Pantheon, a powerful being in the universe, bent on destroying aspects of the world. So why did the doctor act so nonchalant about his life in the first episode and his missions? Remember how he was talking to Ruby? He was like, I have no purpose, I have no job, I pay no taxes, I got nothing, I just bum around. Like, wait a second, you're telling me that there are things in the universe throughout time that are horrifying and are entirely based on destroying all the aspects of life that we know and love? And you're just kind of sitting around excited to go back in time to see the Beatles and the Titanic and Mars and the birth of Christ? Like, you do realize that you might be the only thing stopping humanity and the entire universe from plunging into darkness, right? I'm pretty sure I would not ever sleep if I was a doctor. I would be constantly going to every aspect in time and just making sure that everything's cool. But again, he doesn't have a hero's journey. He just cares about his freedom and that's it. God. He even explained that the toy maker in a previous episode said, my legions are coming. So again, why do you not have a reason, a purpose in life, dude? They even say in this episode that stealing music can slide society into a pit. And again, I'm wondered with the question of, is Russell crying out to us? Is he saying, yes, guys, we are sliding into a pit. I can't do anything about it. Please, somebody help me. And then the doctor questions himself. He's like, how do I possibly beat this thing? But Ruby assures him that music exists in her future. That clearly these events did not turn into anything bad because she exists, right? She did not fade away. She has memories. And if the maestro's plan came to fruition, everything will be destroyed, right? So the doctor decides, okay, screw it. I'm going to put you back in 2024. He goes into the TARDIS, presses a few buttons, and they go outside and society's covered in ruins. Just nuclear winter, everything's destroyed. But again, I'm wondering, like, didn't you already screw up the past by talking to the Beatles? Wouldn't Paul and John have this memory of this weird dude coming up to them and trying to inspire them to play music or something? These things obviously did not happen in the past, so it would thus affect the future. You know what? Moving on from that. Not even going to bother with that anymore for this review. But it makes me wonder, if the doctor knows that, okay, the future is now ruined because of the events right now, though, how come he doesn't just take the TARDIS and go back, like, 10 minutes before and just vaporize the maestro with some kind of sonic screwdriver type of thing? Wouldn't that be like the smartest thing? Oh, this being is going to bring forth nothing but destruction. Wouldn't I want to go to, like, the corners of the universe, enlist the best help of people that know what's going on, Rambo up, and then save the day? But then the maestro shows up with a piano and explains the master plan that the maestro is after Ariana tones to feed off of. And when humanity is destroyed and plunged into nuclear winter, that's all that remains, just these tones of the air and utter nothingness in the sky. It's like, that's your plan, just to destroy everything? I don't understand this character. I don't understand this main goal. This makes no sense whatsoever, but obviously they didn't care about it when they wrote this. So as the maestro is just giving up all the information needed, the doctor then says his plan. He's like, wait a second, if you could feed off of music, then music can kill you. And he says this out loud as if he's a cartoon villain. Like, remember that scene in Watchmen where Amalabus, whatever his name is, like, oh, I'm not a cartoon villain. I enacted my plan 30 minutes ago. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop me. It's already done. So the Doctor's outright saying, yes, I can kill you with music. Why would you say that? Wouldn't you just run into the TARDIS? Wouldn't you do like a pocket sand move or something like that? Sprint into the TARDIS and tell Ruby, okay, quick, I got a plan. We're going to go do this stuff. But no. I'm going to stand there and tell the villain what I'm going to do to defeat them. Russell, where's the writer these days? But then the Maestro strikes, playing a series of chords that affect the TARDIS, but somehow let the doors be open and you can just use the machine with no problem at all. And the Doctor is only able to bring them into the 60s again, which I guess isn't the worst problem in the world, but... And they run into the recording studio to find the very chord that could banish the Maestro away forever. But then Ruby is stolen, dragged away by a series of chords and notes, and the Maestro screams and ruins the sonic screwdriver. And then the Maestro, of course, explains to Ruby everything, that she is the only one left that has music in her heart, playing lovesick songs for heartbroken lesbians. This was written by an adult human being. Understand that. How far this man has fallen. Then Ruby starts to sing, and I guess they're going with like an Ariel and Ursula situation, but then something's wrong. Ruby is singing a specific chord that the Maestro, of course, explains to the audience that something is wrong. There is a song deep in her soul, and we can hear Shepherd Bell Carol being played, and Snow enters the room. It seems that every scene in episode is going to be about Ruby and Christmas and Snow. But of course the Doctor explains that this is the song that was at Ruby's birth. So the Maestro gets upset and drops Ruby. And then they have, I'm going to say this as easily as I can, a music battle. The Maestro wields a violin and the Doctor gets the piano that did the Beatles' greatest hits on it. And they start playing a song. And then the notes start flying up in the sky. But it's not like that scene in Multiverse of Madness where Doctor Strange was fighting himself using actual musical notes to combat each other. This is just music flying in the sky and doing nothing. And the whole time, you can't really tell who's winning this battle. It just sounds like two instruments being played at the same time. But then the Maestro gets upset and breaks the violin, so I guess the Doctor won. And then the Doctor realizes that he knows the series of notes to banish the Maestro. Because he says, I have experienced everything, and I've seen it all, and I know everything, and I know what life is, and music is life, so I know these notes. So he starts playing the notes one by one, and the Maestro starts reverberating and falling to the ground and screaming and convulsing. And then at the very end, the Doctor, ready to put that final note, just like Clint Eastwood cocking that pistol back, he's ready to play that final note. And he does. But it's the wrong note, because a piano has like 5,000 keys, and it's mathematically impossible to get 6 random chords correct. But then the Maestro, back at full strength, sucks Ruby and the Doctor into a cello and a drum, and banishes the piano into the hall, and all hope is lost, and the Maestro has won, and the Doctor can't do anything. He's just having his head bounced around in the drum, and Ruby's screaming, but then, oh no, dear viewer, like manna from above, Paul McCartney and John Lennon just so happened to be walking the halls and see this piano. And after giving a speech to the Doctor about how, oh yeah, music is pointless and I just want to drink tea and sit with my wife and do nothing and life is meaningless, they see the piano. And together, they play the final chord. And it banishes the Maestro and she gets sucked into the piano. And with her final words, she says, "The one who waits is almost here." So I guess we're going to get a big final boss bad later on in this season. Who knows? Honestly, this show might be done tomorrow at this point. They lost like 200,000 viewers from episode 1 to 2, and I think their viewership was only like 2 million. Who knows? Who possibly knows how high Disney is going to spin these numbers? Like, oh yeah, 50 billion people watched it the first day. Like, yeah, guys, we can see the numbers. We know what's going on here. Stop lying to us. So then the day is saved. The maestro sucked into the piano. The Doctor and Ruby run upstairs to the roof. They see the sky is blue, grass is green, there's light in the sky. Everyone is so happy. They did it. They won. The perfect time to end the episode is right now. But oh no. They have a better idea because they know better than us though. The Doctor looks at the camera and says, "There's always a twist at the end," and he winks. And then we get a musical song and dance number. What the hell is happening? Who made this show? Russell, please, can you sink any lower as a creator? This is bad. This is dumb. It's not worth it. Do they have like photos of you on some kind of island or something like that though? And that's the episode. Was it worse than Space Babies? I honestly don't know. People have been telling me episode 2 is better than episode 1. I would say episode 1 was more fun. Episode 2 was just terrible. And yes, episode 1 was bad too, but at least I enjoyed it more. It was silly, it was goofy, it was turn your brain off. This one is just bad from start to finish. There are so many plot holes in episode 2 of the new season. I'm sorry, the new series. Episode 2 of the new series. There are so many plot holes with it that it might be impossible to make this show work in the end. And that's my review of episode 2. What do you guys think about that? If you can go back in time and see one event at all, please let me know what that would be. Let me know what you guys think of the episode. And most importantly, thank you guys very much for watching.